No one really talks about this, but there are exactly 3 things you can do that will make an avoidant deeply regret leaving you. And I'm not just talking about like the obvious stuff that everyone tells you, like, hey, just move on, or hey, just focus on yourself. I'm talking about specific research-backed strategies that tap into the hidden psychology of how avoidants actually process regret. Now, here's what's fascinating. Most people think that avoidants don't feel regret at all, that they just move on like nothing happened. But that's actually completely wrong. Look at this. I found this press release back in 2022 that surveyed 1,400 men, mostly avoidant dumpers, and found that 76.5% regretted breaking up within about 2 months. But here's the real kicker. 68% said that the no contact period helped them realize the importance of their ex. There's a catch though. The regret doesn't happen the way you think it does. And if you don't understand the specific triggers that create this regret, well, you'll miss your window entirely. You see, avoidants have what I call a hidden language, and most people are completely fluent in the wrong dialect. They're speaking anxious attachment when they need to be speaking avoidant. They're crowding when they should be creating space. But here's what really gets me fired up about this topic. I recently interviewed Heather, who got her fearful avoidant ex back after almost 2 years. And she said something that completely changed how I think about avoidant regret.
I think the most important thing for the relationship was what we just discussed, was me learning that he does need to process things a little bit differently than I do. And that's fine. As long as I can recognize it, I am more than willing to give him that time.
See, that's the hidden language that I'm talking about. When stress hits, people with an avoidant attachment style don't reach for closeness the way most of us do. Instead, their brains flip control over to the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, basically the think your way through it zone, so they can power through emotions on their own. Think of it like this. Your emotions are a loud concert, and the DLPFC is a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Now, secure or anxious attachers yank the headphones off and ask someone nearby, hey, help me calm the noise. So avoidants crank the active noise cancellation to the max volume so that they can finish the task without any kind of outside interference. So if you walk up shouting feelings, they can't hear a word you're saying. And if you come at them in that moment with really long emotional speeches, it's going to feel like you're talking in the wrong language. But there's something even more specific happening beneath the surface, something that determines whether an avoidant will feel that deep, lasting regret or just nothing. And it all comes down to timing. You see, there's a critical window where avoidants are most vulnerable to regret. You miss that window when they complete another revolution around what I call their death wheel, moving on, feeling justified in their decision to detach. But if you hit this window correctly, well, that's when the real regret sets in. But I'm getting rambly. Let's break down those 3 specific things that create this regret, starting with the most counterintuitive one. Thing number 1, no contact is your friend, but not how you think. Okay, so everyone knows about no contact, but most people are doing it completely wrong when it comes to avoidance. Here's what I mean. Many people treat no contact like a punishment, like, hey, I'm going to ignore you until you come crawling back. But with avoidance, no contact serves a completely different purpose. It's not about punishment, it's about creating the psychological space they need to actually miss you. Do you remember that survey I mentioned? 68% of male dumpers said no contact helped them realize their ex's importance. Well, here's the part no one talks about. The timing has to be perfect. You have to play the long game. So inside my community, the number 1 question I get whenever I mention the no contact rule is, hey, Chris, if I'm not talking to my avoidant ex, how will they even notice the changes that I'm making? That's where social media becomes your silent megaphone. Researchers call it upward counterfactual thinking, the what-if spiral that kicks in when you can see a path you didn't take outperforming the one that you did. Or, as the attachment project so lovingly says, avoidant attachers may also engage in counterfactual thinking, wondering what might have been if only they had acted differently. And guess where they do that wondering? Online. Years ago, there was a Huffington Post YouGov survey that found that nearly 90% of people admitted to Facebook creeping on an ex. So my logic is this. If almost everyone is checking, imagine the odds for an avoidant who already values distance and low-risk observation. While your radio's silent, your stories, your reels, your LinkedIn wins do the whispering for you. It feeds their what-if loop without breaking any kind of no contact. Here's a Reddit comment from a recovering avoidant that perfectly illustrates this. Yes, as a recovering avoidant, it usually took me 6 months later. One person in particular has haunted me for 10 years later, and I even tried searching for said person. When I say haunted, I mean like deep regret and embarrassment, and even fantasized for a week how I'd magically run into him one day in the future, and practiced how I would apologize and explain, but the regret comes later. So 6 months later. That's the timeline we're working with. And this makes sense. When I audited hundreds of our own avoidant success stories, the average reconnection time for coaching clients was 5.2 months, almost identical to that 6-month mark. But it's really when the avoidant said this that matters. The regret comes later. It's not that we don't care about people. We care deeply. But ever have an anxiety attack and feel numb after? Ever dissociate in a stressful situation and it's like tunnel vision and you're just super calm and out of it? Yeah, think of that, but with us. This is why immediate no contact is so powerful. Avoidants literally dissociate from the emotional experience of the breakup. They need time and space for those suppressed emotions to surface, but no contact alone isn't going to be enough. You need the second element. Thing number 2, a visible transformation. So the other day, I'm scrolling through my community and I stumble across this post from one of our members. After 2 months of going on dates, I felt a bit more at ease. He asked me to be his girlfriend. So here's to a new relationship. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing an ad like this for the CER Super Offer, I'm only showing you the happy end result. Oh, hey, look, this person got their avoidant back. Oh, wow, this person is now engaged. Oh, now this person is married. And if that's all you saw, you'd probably think that this was easy. But here's the truth. It's not. Making an avoidant regret losing you or even getting over an avoidant takes real work. What you don't see behind these success stories are the late nights spent going through the course library and actually applying the strategies, the breakthroughs that happens when members partner with battle buddies for accountability and support, the live streams where they ask tough questions and get real answers. This isn't about luck. It's about having the right tools. That's why I built the CER Super Offer. Right now, for YouTube viewers only, I'm giving you everything you need to get results like this. My complete course library, a private community, weekly live streams. Now, normally I sell all of these things separately, but today you get everything at 50% off. That's a one-time payment of $97. No monthly fees, no hidden costs, just everything you need to make your avoidant regret losing you and reignite their obsession. So, if you're interested, click in the link on the description below and start your transformation today. Now, I've already alluded to this a bit earlier, but this is where the psychology gets really interesting. Take a look at this. New research has uncovered what scientists call a hidden source of regret. Now, some research shows we feel more regret in our decisions when we can see the outcomes of the choices we did not make compared to unknown or uncertain outcomes. In other words, when an avoidant can see what they're missing out on, the regret intensifies dramatically. Social comparison fMRI work shows that reward and envy circuits light up when we watch an ex outperform us, intensifying regret. So the bigger and more visible the win, the sharper the neural sting. I call this counterfactual status shock. After the split, you publicly level up. You run a marathon or you launch a book, or you get promoted, or you post the finish line photo. For an avoidant, watching an ex outperform them lights up social comparison and reward circuits in ways that amplify regret. So they'll start sitting there thinking, hey, I could have shared in that win. But here's the key. It has to be a genuine transformation, not performative nonsense. Do you remember that interview with Heather that I mentioned earlier? Well, she said,
I needed to get that confidence back and that bring back that dynamic of where I wasn't being meek and trying to make him happy and scared he's going to leave, but actually be a partner where we have that banter. And if
it's equal,
yeah, exactly. Very equal. And I truly needed that back in the relationship for it to work.
Avoidants can sense authenticity. They've spent their whole lives building defense mechanisms against manipulation, but genuine growth, well, that's magnetic to them. Why though? Well, I actually think the answer might lie with this guy, Carl Jung. Now, most people know about the shadow, the dark parts of ourselves that we hide, but Jung said there's also a golden shadow, all the best qualities we've disowned because they felt unsafe to show. So for avoidance, vulnerability, independence, and open pride often live in that golden shadow. They were rewarded for self-reliance and punished or shamed for needing anyone. So they stuffed the softer traits away. But what does this have to do with your genuine growth? Well, for all intents and purposes, when you grow for real, you're publicly wearing traits an avoidant buried. Your confidence, your openness, your self-trust are literal projections of their hidden gold. Check out this study I found. In summary, for envy to occur, a person must engage in comparison with a similar but seemingly superior person in a self-relevant domain. So what does that study mean by self-relevant domain? Well, it's basically a fancy way of saying this is something that matters to my identity. It's not just a random category of success. It's a category that hits close to home. I mean, think about it. If your avoidant has never cared about fitness, they won't envy you for running a marathon. But if they've secretly wanted to feel strong, or they always wish they could commit to something hard, then that finish line photo burns because it reflects back the version of themselves that they wish they could be. That's what makes it self-relevant. But here's the thing about avoidance. They've spent years avoiding intimacy, but that doesn't mean they don't value it. In fact, they often want closeness more than anyone. They just don't know how to pursue it safely. So when you become someone who's emotionally fluent and thriving in your connections without chasing them, it hits. Because emotional mastery is a self-relevant domain. It's part of the golden shadow, something they admire, suppress, and feel shame about not having. That's why your growth lands differently than their friend's promotion or their cousin's wedding photo. You're not just someone they dated. You're someone who's excelling in a domain they've quietly judged themselves for failing in. And this brings us to the third thing, the one that seals the deal. Thing number 3, avoidance needs someone that knows their language. Okay, so you need to speak their language. Most people think that avoidants are just like these cold and unfeeling individuals, but that's not true at all. They're actually incredibly sensitive. They've just learned to suppress and inhibit their emotional experiences as a survival mechanism. Individuals with avoidant attachment inhibit or block the activation of the attachment system to keep attachment needs and tendencies deactivated. And what it leads to is the inhibition or suppression of the emotional experience. But here's what's fascinating. When you speak their language correctly, they don't see you as a threat to their independence. They see you as someone who actually gets them. So what does this language look like? Well, when they're stressed, you keep your words brief. You give them breathing room. You offer concrete help like running an errand or bringing lunch. Once their brain realizes you actually lighten the load rather than add to it, that's when the regret about pushing you away tends to set in. But this is another little twist. In spite of the fact that avoidants may regret breaking up, they may actually end up regarding their ex-partner negatively. And they'll convince themselves that the breakup was their ex's fault. Thus, they may talk themselves into thinking that the breakup was the best decision they ever made. Yet, regardless of whether avoidant attachers regret a breakup or not, they're still not likely to attempt to re-establish the relationship unless you speak their language. And that's where most people mess up completely. They understand the theory, but they can't execute it. There's actually a psychological reason for this disconnect that I covered a lot in this video. It's the difference between what scientists call declarative learning and procedural learning. Declarative learning is when you can recite facts, like knowing that avoidance needs space, or that no contact works, or that you should focus on yourself. You can read about it, you can understand it intellectually, you can even explain it to someone else. But procedural learning, well, that's when your body and emotions actually know how to do something. It's the difference between knowing how to ride a bike in theory versus actually being able to balance, pedal, and steer without falling over. Most people get stuck in declarative learning mode. They know they should give their avoidant space, but when their avoidant posts a story with someone new, their nervous system hijacks them. They know they shouldn't break no contact, but when they see their avoidant at a coffee shop with someone else, their emotions override their logic. They understand the what, but they haven't developed the how. But I haven't even gotten to the craziest part yet. There's actually a hidden fourth element that determines whether these three things will end up working. That's thing number 4, timing and sequence. You can't just randomly apply these 3 strategies. They have to happen in a very specific order at very specific times for very specific durations. Remember Heather's story that I've been constantly mentioning throughout this video? Well, the background on her story is really interesting. She basically tried everything on her avoidant for 6 months while he was deployed overseas, and nothing worked. But the moment he came back and she applied the 3 things that I've spent all day talking about in the right sequence, everything changed. And here's what she learned.
The proof that I wasn't pressuring him. And I think that's what I needed to be doing the whole time, which is the whole point of this program. At no point was I pressuring him, but I was showing him how good it could be. But at the same time, I'm going to let you figure this out. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that's what finally got into his head. I missed this. She's not pressuring me. It's right there. And then we went away again. He really missed it. And it was while he was away, that's when he just said it one day in a message. He's like, yeah, when we get back together, when I get back home, we're going to do this and this, and we're going to go, do this and let's go on this vacation,
right.
future base. And it literally was a day. He just started using future terms and he never went back.
The sequence matters. The timing matters. The execution matters. Most people get impatient. They try to rush the process. They break no contact too early. They make their level up too obvious. They speak the wrong language at the wrong time. But when you get all 3 elements right in the right sequence at the right time, well, that's when avoidants experience what I call deep regret. Not just missing you, not just wondering, hey, what if? But actual profound regret that they let someone who truly understood them slip away. I mean, look, I get it. This stuff is hard. It requires patience. It requires discipline and a level of emotional intelligence that most people haven't developed yet. But here's what I want you to understand. Avoidants aren't broken. They're not incapable of love. They're just operating from a different emotional framework than you are. And when you learn to work within that framework instead of against it, everything changes. The regret becomes inevitable because you become the person who truly gets them, the person who speaks their language, the person who gives them space to miss you while simultaneously showing them what they're missing out on. You become irreplaceable. And that's when the real magic happens.